that you guys can think of. We'll probably end up asking at 9 with Chima and Bakum. Right now, though, head into the KUM News Zoom room here for an update from the Guam Housing Urban Renewal Authority, the executive director, Ray Topasna. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Chris. Morning, Bree.
Good morning.
I guess we'll just go ahead and get started on. There's a couple issues. The mortgage relief that I think you're doing in conjunction with the Guam Housing Corporation, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and so I thought I saw a media report where it said that there were only just a few people who had qualified for this assistance.
Yeah, unfortunately, I believe there were 100, excuse me, a total of 136 applications that were submitted, and only 3 have qualified based on very stringent federal regs. So it's unfortunate. That's about $714,000 that we had budgeted for. And a lot of that money is going to end up having to be reprogrammed for other purposes in connection to the pandemic.
I guess, Ray, the first question is I understand that the guidelines are stringent and they're very federal, but what does this mean though in English? Are there people who need this assistance who just didn't meet it? Because the interesting thing about COVID is it's not only impacted the low income families. The middle class have also been middle class families out of work. So what's the problem here? Because I want to say I feel like there would definitely be more than 3 people on this island who need mortgage assistance.
Chris, I completely agree. I totally support that. I think what the problem is, and I said this repeatedly, is when the pandemic hit us in the U.S., Congress went ahead and passed all these pandemic relief programs. And this particular round of COVID funding came late in the game. So basically, in my opinion, what they should have done is really put a lot of thought into the passage of all these pandemic relief programs, because essentially what's happening is some of them end up canceling each other out. So you have PUA that came out early on, and then you have the mortgage relief, rent relief, but there are income thresholds that are taken into account. And if you've received PUA checks and it kicks you up above a certain income level, then you may not be eligible in the end. So, if I were to recommend to Congress, you shouldn't be passing, you pass all these pandemic relief programs, but if you receive one, you can't receive the other. If you receive another, you can't receive this and you can't receive that. So, we just have to follow the rules. There's nothing I can do otherwise I'd be non-compliant and it'll show up in our audit reports.
What about discussions with the congressman about your concerns? Was there?
Well, I have an open door. He can call me, he can talk to me. We've tried reaching out to him. So, I think I've stated publicly that rather than come down hard on GHURA because we're not able to move forward expeditiously, perhaps you should try and pass legislation that does away with all these stringent guidelines. We've had a second and third round of COVID monies given to us, and we're struggling to spend these monies because the guidelines are so stringent. So perhaps the ideal solution would have been to just when they appropriate all these monies, just do away with all the stringent regs, and they haven't done that.
And this is not just an issue that's isolated to Guam, right? This is kind of going on across the country with people that are eligible.
That is correct, Bree. But, we feel it more because we're a small island community, and a lot of these federal monies are critical to keep us afloat. But in many instances, it's a challenge to spend down on these federal funds.
So how much money for this program was allocated to Guam? And how much?
In particular, for the rent relief or for the mortgage relief, we budgeted $714,000. I think Guam Housing Corp has given out less than $8,000 in mortgage relief, and then the admin costs kick in. But for the most part, most of that money, GHURA would have to have it reprogrammed. So we're not going to give back the money, that's for sure. We're just, my team is working on reprogramming the funds towards other purposes. And one of the things we're looking at is possibly retrofitting some of the senior centers on this island so that they can, they'll be able to open sooner because we'll be able to address the social distancing, possibly introducing UV technology at some of these senior centers so that we can try and combat the virus and change out of the ventilation systems, stuff like that. So my technical team is currently looking at reprogramming some of the funds, and we still have a lot of time left.
Ray, is there any conversation with the Gov about the American Rescue Plan funding? So if you agree that people need this mortgage assistance but can't necessarily meet the stringent federal guidelines for it, is there any plan to use any of that ARP for any type of assistance that maybe is less stringent or is open to more people?
We've had discussions about that, Chris, and thank you for asking. But as what's been coming out in media reports, I'm sure there's a huge wish list from various government agencies, we're going to be competing against, public health, public safety, education, all of that stuff. Those are always top priorities. So, I'll let the administration decide how the ARP funds are going to be spent. I've put in my requests, and we'll see how that pans out.
How much did you put in for?
Well, I'm not at liberty to say, but we're working on projects that the government of Guam had been talking about for quite some time, but hasn't been able to proceed forward. We really want to focus, or at least GHURA would like to focus on drug alcohol rehab facilities. So we're working with Guam Behavioral Health on the construction of a New Beginnings building. And then the former Talafofo Cottage home, we're also going to be asking for ARP money to fund the rehabilitation of that former cottage home to convert that to a drug rehab facility. And we're also going to be asking the governor to see whether we can seek funding for the Jigo substation, Jigo police substation, and also the southeastern substation on the probably in Talafofo area.
And so how much would those projects cost?
Well, some of them we know how much it's going to cost. The New Beginnings building for behavioral health was about $8.7 million. Converting the former Talafofo Cottage home would run us somewhere in the vicinity of $700,000. We're not sure yet of the southeastern precinct because there's two separate locations that we're eyeing. So it depending on which location we choose, it would there would be a huge price difference. And then Jigo precinct, we're still in the discussion stages, so we don't know exactly how much that's going to cost.
But is that going to be a mixture of ARP money that you're looking to fund these projects, and I don't know, federal block grants, or?
At this point, I don't know. I can't speak for the administration. I'm just letting you guys know that these are some of the things that I would like to, that GHURA would like to participate in, because we have the engineers here, we have the engineering team that can help with the A&E design, and then ultimately lead as construction managers for all these projects. So it really is up to the administration. I'm sure there's a there's a whole slew of projects that they're considering right now.
Right.
And just to go back to the reprogramming of the $714,000 to retrofit some of the senior centers, have you already had dialogue with the Mayor's Council of Guam?
We actually haven't, and only because the reprogramming of that 714,000, there's still a Guam Housing Corp has not sent us the entire bill, and once we do that, then once we're able to identify what that is, then we'll know how much is left to reprogram. But we also have the second and third round of COVID monies that we need to spend down expeditiously. Well, not expeditiously. We still have until the end of the year, but we're pretty confident we'll spend most of these funds, if not all.
How much are we talking on second and third round of funding?
I'm sorry?
How much are we talking? You said second and third round of funding?
I would say close to about $2.6 million.
Wow. Can we go over, because I noticed July 1st, I believe, was the start date for the availability of these emergency housing vouchers to the homeless? Have you already started giving those vouchers, or at least?
Well, what it is July 1st was when the program was officially launched. And we have received 17 applications to date, referrals from the Guam Homeless Coalition. We entered into a memorandum of understanding with the coalition to make referrals to GHURA, and that's typically how the process is going to work. And the coalition is members who would be making these referrals, and if I can just read them, it's pretty lengthy. Veterans Affairs, DYA, Guam Head Start, DOE, Public Defender, Manyatlu, Westcare, Pacific, Vero, Sanctuary, Catholic Social Service, Salvation Army, Gumamami, Visit, Behavioral Health. And pretty much those are the key players. They would be making the referrals. We've received about 17 in the last week. And we are currently in the process, we're reviewing those applications, and we'll start interviews on the 19th. So yeah, we're very excited. We're pretty confident those 87 emergency housing vouchers will be issued very quickly. And that's 87 families or individuals that will be able to provide a more permanent home to. And we're very excited about this, and we're hopeful that I think it's an 18-month expiration, but we're very hopeful that HUD might permanentize these vouchers nationwide to include Guam. And so these folks might actually have a permanent home.
And this is separate and apart from those that are in the homeless shelter?
Well, the ones at the global dorm, we're hoping that many of them will qualify. And so they'll go from, some families were out in the streets and we were able to provide through the efforts of the Lieutenant Governor's office a emergency shelter, which is global dorm, and they will be, and then we're hoping the next step in that process, of course, is permanent housing, and we're hoping we get to that point with many of those families. Of course, they would have to qualify, and in some cases, they may not be interested in moving towards more permanent housing, because, in dealing with these homeless individuals, there's a whole slew of issues that we need to consider. In some cases, there are strict rules when you enter a shelter, and and many of them may not be used to following these rules. So it was very challenging to get them to global dorm. And then now there's even more rules when you move them towards permanent housing. So, I mean, we accept the challenge. We have excellent partners in that with the Guam Homeless Coalition. And so, we're hopeful we can help as many families as possible.
Right.
But, in the same token, GHURA is also working on a second shelter, a second homeless shelter.
Yeah.
And we're very close to finalizing that. We had challenges with the fact that the federal government required flood insurance. And so the contractor is currently closing out that issue. They're working on the elevation certificate, which was very challenging because not a lot of companies do that kind of stuff. Mm. And so once that process is completed, we'll be able to secure the flood insurance, and the governor's office has offered to pay for it. And then we'll have a second shelter to get more of these families off the streets.
What's the timeline on that, Ray?
I'm hoping we're going to get something done before August. But again, I wish when Congress passed all these pandemic relief programs, they just did away with all the regulations, and then we'd just be able to spend the money real quickly. That's not the case.
This shelter, and even just for global dorms, it was opened because of the emergency declaration. And so, the governor yesterday, when she spoke with the media, was mentioning that PCOR 4, we're possibly looking at that by next week, I believe. And I'm not sure if we are in PCOR 4, if that means that we're no longer in a public health emergency. But whatever the case may be, if this public health emergency is lifted, what happens to global dorms?
Well, the COVID funds continue. I mean, in the case of this funding, it's good until next year. So yeah, we don't anticipate the money will go away. We're required by federal authorities to spend down on these funds, and they give us enough time to do that. I wish we could move the process a lot quicker, but again, I mean, I've been criticized in the past because we have audit findings, and I'm not about to go down that road again.
Okay, so regardless if the public health emergency declaration is lifted, as long as there is funding, whether it's through ARP, I guess, or whatever source of funding, the global dorms will remain open, and efforts to secure a second emergency homeless shelter will remain intact once secured.
You are correct.
Okay.
Ray, I saw your note here about affordable housing and the I don't even know what is the LIHTC.
The Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program.
Thank you.
And basically, it's a program under the IRS where where GHURA is the state authorizing, allocating agency for these federal housing tax credits. And basically, we've built about 1,500 homes over the last couple of decades, utilizing the tax credits. And GHURA, at the next board meeting, the board will be approving the allocation, or basically the qualified allocation plan, which is a competitive process of allocating these tax credits. And the board will be approving that at the next meeting of Friday of next week. And basically, it's about $6.6 million worth of tax credits, but it's really over a 10-year period. So it's actually worth about $66 million of tax credits that we will use towards building affordable homes for our low to moderate income families. So we're excited about that. That's probably the most tax credits we've been able to allocate at one time. And we're hoping to build many, many homes with that for our community.
Well, that's good news.
Ray, so it kind of sounds like, just between us girls, that if you're getting the flood insurance for the second shelter, that you know where it is. So what village is it in?
It's in Tamuning, but I can't specify exactly where that is. But yeah, it's until winning. I don't even think it's a flood zone, but I don't get to make that call. Nonetheless, with all these stringent federal regs, if it shows on a FEMA map that it's in a flood zone, even though it's never flooded, then you need to procure flood insurance.
What other hints can you give us?
I think I said enough, but we're working on it, Chris, and we're hoping we can have a second shelter. And one thing this administration has done is the Lieutenant Governor has created the Interagency Council on Homelessness, and then established the Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Prevention Office. So many things are being done to address the homeless problem. It's a very proactive effort, and I'm very proud to be part of that effort. And I think we've made huge strides even during a pandemic. While you see a lot that's going on, particularly in Southern California at Venice Beach, the homeless problem is just progressively worsening, but we seem to have it under control, at least in my opinion. And it's a very relentless effort by this administration.
Thank you, Ray, for your time this morning.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you, Chris. And
Appreciate
next
it.
time, let me know you're going to wear that shirt. I think we're wearing the same
I
shirt.
feel like we're twinsies today.
Oh my gosh.
Who wore it better,
Yeah,
guys?
who wore it better?
Ray, he does this with like at least 2 or 3 of our staffers, including me.
Yeah, Jason and I have a couple of the same shirts too.
Yeah.
So.
Apparently there was a sale at Macy's that day.
I'll coordinate our outfits next time you come on, Ray.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, that's
Thanks
fine.
We've done that before, man.
Yeah.
It's same shirt Tuesday.
Yeah. Twinning Tuesday. All right. 7:58, guys. We're just a couple minutes away from going on KUAM TV. Here's what's coming up on the show. We have more testimony from that hot public hearing. I'm telling you guys, it was better than Black Widow. Go see Black Widow at Tango Theaters, but I'm saying, like,